The Algebra of Happiness by Scott Galloway. Introduction. We spend a lot of our lives chasing success, more money, better titles, bigger homes, believing that somewhere along the way we'll find happiness. But in The Algebra of Happiness, Scott Galloway offers a different perspective. He suggests that happiness isn't something you stumble upon, it's something you build, like a formula. While life can't be reduced to perfect equations, Galloway believes there are consistent variables that make a meaningful difference, things like love, health, work, and purpose. When those are in balance, we feel whole. When they're not, no amount of money or recognition can fill the gap. Galloway speaks from personal experience. He's been successful, and he's made mistakes. He's built companies, taught thousands of students, been married and divorced, and raised children. And through all of that, he's seen one clear pattern. We tend to prioritize what's easiest to measure: career milestones, income, status, while overlooking the things that truly bring us peace, like connection, health, and contribution. In this book, he doesn't offer cliches or generic advice. Instead, he shares hard-won insights, backed by both data and life experience. The introduction sets the tone for the rest of the book. Honest, sometimes uncomfortable, but deeply practical. Galloway doesn't promise perfect happiness. What he offers is clarity, a reminder that fulfillment doesn't come from chasing everything, but from paying attention to the few things that matter most. Chapter 1. The Myth of Passion. One of the most common pieces of advice given to young people is to follow your passion. It's something we hear from celebrities, influencers, graduation speakers, and even well-meaning parents. The idea is simple and emotionally appealing. Figure out what you love to do, then build your career around it. The assumption is that if you love something enough, you'll naturally work hard at it, and success will follow. But while this idea sounds inspiring, it rarely plays out that way in real life. The problem is that most people, especially in their early 20s, don't have a clear or realistic sense of what their passion even is. And even if they do have a passion, playing music, traveling, writing, gaming, or any number of creative or lifestyle pursuits, it often doesn't align with the economic realities of the world. Passion alone doesn't pay rent. And turning a passion into a career usually requires a long, uncertain path that most people aren't in a position to afford, especially when financial security is still out of reach. Instead of telling people to follow their passion, a more honest and useful approach is to tell them to follow their talent, and then work hard. Talent doesn't mean being a prodigy or a genius. It means paying attention to what comes relatively easier to you than to others. Everyone has certain things they can do well with less friction than their peers. For some, it's math. For others, it's writing, problem-solving, persuasion, design, or communication. These skills, once identified, should be matched with real-world demand. If you can become good, really good, at something the market values, you put yourself in a position to build a strong foundation for your life. This isn't to say that you should abandon what you love. Instead, the idea is that passion can grow from competence. When you develop skill, when you become excellent at something, and when people start to recognize and reward that excellence, you often begin to feel passionate about the work. Passion is not always the cause of success, it's often the result of it. In fact, much of what we call passion is simply the satisfaction that comes from mastery. Think about the times in life when you've been fully engaged in something, not because it was easy or fun, but because you were getting better at it, making progress, and seeing the results of your effort. That kind of fulfillment doesn't usually come at the beginning. It comes after you've put in the hours, overcome obstacles, and earned the right to feel pride in your work. There's also an important truth about financial freedom that doesn't get talked about enough in conversations about passion. When people are struggling to pay their bills, when they're buried in debt, or when they're constantly worried about money, the stress is overwhelming. It doesn't matter how passionate you are about your craft. If you're living under constant financial pressure, that stress bleeds into every part of your life. Relationships suffer. Health suffers. Sleep suffers. Long-term thinking becomes impossible. That's why building financial stability early in life is critical. It doesn't mean chasing money for the sake of status or ego. It means recognizing that money, while not the ultimate source of happiness, provides something even more powerful in the long run. Freedom. Freedom to walk away from a toxic job. Freedom to spend time with family. Freedom to pursue side projects or creative interests without worrying whether they'll pay off immediately. Freedom to say no when it matters. And the way to build that freedom is usually by working hard, sometimes at things you don't love, when you're young. It means making sacrifices in your 20s and 30s so you can buy back your time in your 40s and beyond. It means getting up early, working long hours, and learning skills that will compound in value over time. It's not glamorous, it's not always fun, but it's how you build leverage for the life you want later. This doesn't mean you have to choose a miserable job or give up on creativity. It means being strategic. It means asking, where are the waves of opportunity right now? What industries are growing? What kinds of skills are in demand? If you can catch one of those waves and become highly skilled within it, you'll put yourself in a position to create more meaningful choices for yourself later. There's also a psychological benefit to pursuing excellence over passion. When you follow passion blindly, you're often chasing a moving target. You may find yourself discouraged when your dream job turns out to be repetitive, difficult, or not what you expected. But when you focus on becoming really good at something, you're building confidence, self-worth, and independence. You stop relying on external validation because you start to feel grounded in your own ability to contribute and create value. Over time, this creates a deeper kind of fulfillment than passion alone can offer. It's the kind of quiet satisfaction that doesn't need to be posted on social media. It's the pride you feel when you know you've earned your place. That's the kind of fulfillment that lasts. Not the adrenaline rush of chasing a fantasy, but the strength that comes from building something real. It's also worth mentioning that interests change. What you love at 22 might not be what you care about at 35. People grow. Priorities shift. Family enters the picture. Health becomes more important. Freedom becomes more valuable than fame. And if you've spent your life building around a single passion that no longer serves you, the adjustment can be painful. But if you've built your career on competence, adaptability, and a solid financial base, you're far more equipped to navigate those changes. Ultimately, the myth of passion is not that passion is bad, it's that passion is enough. Passion matters, but it's not a plan. It's not a strategy. It's not a reliable source of stability. Instead, it's something that grows naturally when you invest deeply in your work, take pride in your growth, and align your skills with what the world needs. So the better advice, the honest advice, isn't follow your passion. It's follow your talent and apply discipline. Build skills that people need. Work hard while you have the energy. Create financial breathing room. And once you've done that, you may find your passion waiting for you, stronger, steadier, and more rewarding than ever. Chapter 2. Getting the career equation right. When it comes to career success and long-term happiness, there is no magic shortcut. While talent and luck play roles, most outcomes are the result of choices, strategy, effort, and timing. To build a meaningful and sustainable career, there are patterns that tend to work, and ignoring them often leads to stress, instability, and regret. The first truth is simple. Hard work matters, especially early in life. Your 20s and 30s are the most valuable years for investing in your career. These decades lay the foundation for the rest of your working life. It's during this time that energy is highest, responsibilities are lowest, and the return on effort is at its peak. Working hard now doesn't just lead to short-term gains. It creates momentum, opens doors, builds networks, and shapes habits that can pay off for decades. This doesn't mean working yourself into the ground for nothing. It means understanding that time and effort in your early years compound. The work you do today builds skills. Those skills lead to competence. Competence leads to confidence, opportunities, and leverage. And when you're in your 40s or 50s, it's not uncommon for people to be compensated more for their judgment than for raw effort. But you only earn that judgment by putting in the hours earlier on. In addition to effort, industry selection matters just as much, if not more, than raw talent. Where you choose to apply your skills can determine whether you grow quickly or stay stuck. Many people are taught to think that success is about being the smartest person in the room, but in reality, it's often about being in the right room. A person of average talent in a rapidly growing industry often ends up with a more rewarding and better-paying career than a highly talented person stuck in a declining field. This is why it's essential to pay attention to trends and trajectories. Ask questions like, which sectors are growing? What technologies are reshaping the world? Where is capital flowing? Identifying rising industries, such as AI, healthcare innovation, renewable energy, financial technology, or cybersecurity, and aligning yourself with them early gives you a long runway for growth. You don't need to be an expert when you begin. You just need to be smart enough to spot where the future is heading and disciplined enough to get in early and grow with it. Location also plays a role. Opportunities are not evenly distributed. For many career paths, being in the right city or region can dramatically change your access to mentors, employers, capital, and networks. While remote work has made location somewhat more flexible, proximity to innovation hubs still matters, especially when you're young and need to build connections in person. Moving to a city with more opportunity is one of the highest return on investment decisions a young professional can make. Another key principle is this: specialization beats generalization. People often try to be good at many things in the hope that versatility will make them more valuable. But in most fields, the top 10% of performers capture a disproportionate share of the rewards. This means your goal should be to become exceptionally good at something. Find a niche, lean into it, and become hard to replace. When your skills are rare, valuable, and difficult to replicate, you gain negotiating power, job security, and freedom. That doesn't mean you're stuck doing one thing forever, but you need a core strength, a field, function, or capability where you can say, confidently, I'm better than most. It could be public speaking, sales, data analysis, software development, financial modeling, or negotiation. The specifics don't matter as much as your ability to go deep enough to stand out. At the same time, your reputation is a form of capital. In the early stages of your career, reputation compounds quietly in the background. Every project you complete, every team you help, every deadline you hit, builds trust. People talk. Managers remember. Peers refer. The person who consistently delivers, not perfectly but reliably, starts to attract better opportunities, more responsibility, and ultimately, more freedom. Reputation can open more doors than credentials. Another hidden factor in career success is grit. Talent is helpful, but persistence is critical. In any path, there will be failures, setbacks, and long periods where progress feels slow. The ability to push through those times without quitting is often what separates long-term winners from everyone else. It's not about grinding for the sake of it. It's about being willing to stay in the game long enough to let your work compound. Most people quit too early. That said, burnout is real, and working yourself into exhaustion is not the same as strategic effort. The goal is not to grind forever. The goal is to work smart and hard while you're young so you can afford to make better, healthier decisions later. A sprint in your 20s can lead to a more balanced marathon in your 30s and beyond. Those who prioritize comfort too early often find themselves stuck later, doing uninspiring work just to make ends meet. Wealth also changes the equation. While money isn't everything, it matters when you don't have it. Early financial stability provides mental clarity and emotional resilience. It gives you the freedom to take risks, walk away from bad jobs, and make decisions based on values rather than desperation. You don't need to be rich. You need enough to not be afraid. That baseline of security is a career multiplier. Finally, one of the most overlooked elements in a successful career is having people who believe in you. Mentors, managers, and peers who invest in your growth can change the trajectory of your life. These relationships are not formed through charm or luck. They're earned through trust, performance, and mutual respect. When others trust that you'll deliver, they start offering you chances. And often, your biggest career break will come from someone who decides you're worth betting on. In the long run, careers aren't built by chasing trends, titles, or perks. They're built through a combination of effort, timing, judgment, and discipline. Get into the right field early. Work hard while you have energy. Be reliable, build a reputation, develop one standout skill, and understand that every smart decision you make compounds, just like money. The career equation isn't glamorous. It's not a viral quote or a productivity hack. It's about making disciplined choices over and over again. The payoff isn't always immediate, but over time, the people who get the equation right are the ones with options, leverage, and peace of mind. Chapter 3: Wealth, Success, and the Limits Thereof. We live in a world that constantly tells us more is better. More money, more success, more recognition. From a young age, we're taught to equate success with happiness, as if accumulating wealth is the ultimate goal, and owning impressive things is proof that we're winning at life. But while wealth and professional success do matter, they aren't limitless sources of happiness. In fact, their impact on our well-being tends to plateau much sooner than we think. Let's start with the basic truth. Money does make life easier, up to a point. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to cover rent, health bills, or basic needs, financial stress can be overwhelming. It takes up mental space, creates constant anxiety, and limits your ability to think long-term. In this context, more money really does make a meaningful difference. It brings stability, security, and options. It reduces fear. But the emotional return on money is not linear. Once your basic needs are met, each additional dollar brings diminishing returns. There's only so much happiness that a nicer car, a bigger house, or fancier vacations can buy. Eventually, people adapt. That new lifestyle becomes the new normal, and the thrill wears off. What was once exciting becomes expected, and the goalpost moves again. This is one of the biggest traps of modern life, confusing success with fulfillment. Success is external. It's how others perceive you. Fulfillment is internal. It's how you feel about your life when no one else is watching. The two are not the same, and the more we chase success for the sake of status, the more we risk losing touch with the things that actually sustain happiness in the long run. Wealth can solve problems, but it can also create new ones, especially if it becomes your identity. When people tie their self-worth to how much they earn or what they own, they start to feel anxious any time their financial situation changes. They fear losing status, not because it will harm their quality of life, but because it threatens their sense of self. This emotional dependency on wealth is exhausting, and it makes people fragile. Another important insight is that wealth is not just about income, it's about control over your time. Many people with high-paying jobs are still miserable because they're constantly stressed, overworked, or trapped in roles they hate. They may have a nice lifestyle on the surface, but they lack the ability to spend their time how they want. And that's the real purpose of money, to buy back your time. This is what financial independence actually means. It's not about retiring early or living off dividends in some exotic location. It's about reaching a point where you can make choices, what work to do, who to work with, how to spend your day, without fear of going broke. That freedom, even in small amounts, is a major driver of emotional well-being. It gives you room to breathe, think clearly, and live more deliberately. Still, it's important to acknowledge that wealth does bring benefits beyond just freedom. It offers better access to healthcare, education, travel, and experiences that enrich life. It can make you more generous. It can help you support your loved ones, give to causes you believe in, and create opportunities for others. But even these things only bring lasting satisfaction when they're rooted in values, not just in spending. That's why people who chase money for the sake of impressing others often find themselves disillusioned. There's always someone richer, always another level. If your identity is tied to being wealthier than the next person, you'll never feel like you've made it. You'll just keep running. It becomes a treadmill, not a destination. On the other hand, people who use wealth as a tool rather than a trophy tend to feel more grounded. They see money not as proof of superiority, but as a resource to build the life they want, quietly, deliberately, and in line with their deeper goals. These people often live below their means, not because they're cheap, but because they value autonomy more than showing off. It's also worth considering how success affects relationships. When someone becomes wealthy or professionally successful, they sometimes start to believe they're entirely self-made, that their hard work alone got them where they are. But success is rarely a solo project. It often involves a mix of privilege, timing, support systems, and luck. Losing sight of this can lead to arrogance and isolation. Relationships suffer when people start to think they're above others. At the same time, success can also attract superficial connections, people who are drawn to status or access. That's why it becomes even more important, as you gain wealth or recognition, to stay close to the people who knew you before any of it mattered. These are the relationships that ground you and keep you from drifting into ego-driven loneliness. Another emotional risk of success is the fear of losing it. The higher you rise, the more you may feel like you have to protect it all. The pressure to maintain status, income, or lifestyle can create paranoia. Instead of feeling free, successful people sometimes become more anxious than they were when they had less. They stop taking risks. They make decisions out of fear rather than clarity. It's a strange paradox. Success becomes a cage. That's why it's crucial to build a version of success that's aligned with your values. If your definition of success includes time with family, meaningful work, and a healthy mind and body, then the success you build will be more stable and fulfilling. If your definition is based only on comparison, consumption, and external validation, then no matter how much you achieve, it won't feel like enough. There's no shame in wanting to earn more, build wealth, or achieve big goals. Ambition is not the problem. But it becomes dangerous when it's blind, when it's not paired with self-awareness, boundaries, and a clear understanding of what actually brings you peace. In the end, the smartest approach is to be strategic about money, but not obsessed with it. Work hard, earn well, invest wisely. But don't confuse financial success with personal worth. Use money as a means to support the things that actually matter: your health, your relationships, your ability to grow, and your freedom to live on your own terms. Because while success is loud and flashy, real happiness is usually quiet. It's being able to spend your time the way you want. It's having people around you who care about who you are, not what you have, and it's feeling content even when no one is watching. Chapter 4. Relationships are everything. When people look back on their lives, they rarely remember the job titles they held or the amount of money in their bank account. What they remember, what stays with them, are the people. The moments shared with family, friends, partners, mentors, and even brief but meaningful connections with strangers. At the heart of a fulfilling life lies one constant truth: the quality of your relationships is the strongest predictor of your happiness. It's easy to lose sight of this. The world often encourages individualism, competition, and self-promotion. We're told to focus on achievement, personal branding, and independence. Build your empire, prove your worth, and outpace everyone else. But all of that noise distracts us from what actually brings long-term emotional well-being: love, connection, and community. In fact, research backs this up again and again. The longest-running studies on happiness, like the Harvard Study of Adult Development, have all reached the same conclusion. The number one factor correlated with long-term happiness and health is not wealth, fame, or career success. It's having strong, supportive relationships. People who feel connected and loved live longer, stay healthier, and report far greater life satisfaction than those who are isolated, no matter how successful they are on paper. Yet despite how essential relationships are, many people unintentionally deprioritize them. Especially in early adulthood, it's common to put work and ambition first. Career becomes the center of gravity. Hours are spent chasing promotions, projects, and financial goals, while personal connections are put on hold with the idea that I'll have time for that later. But the truth is, relationships are not passive, they require active effort. You can't just put them on pause and expect them to be there when you return. Friendships fade if not maintained. Marriages weaken without attention. Parents age, children grow up, and if you neglect these connections long enough, you can find yourself in a life full of accomplishments, but emotionally empty. That's why it's essential to invest in people with the same urgency that you invest in your career, because in the end, it's people, not promotions, that sustain you. The idea here is not to abandon ambition or personal growth. It's to make sure those pursuits don't come at the cost of your relationships. You can be driven and connected. You can build your career and still show up for your friends. But it won't happen by accident. It requires conscious decisions, choosing to call someone back even when you're tired, showing up to a friend's dinner even when it's inconvenient, making the effort to apologize and repair a fight instead of walking away. These small acts accumulate. They create a foundation of trust and care. They build the kind of relationships that withstand time and change. And when you hit inevitable challenges, loss, illness, failure, it won't be your resume that comforts you. It will be the people who show up. This principle applies across all types of relationships: family, friendships, romantic partners, even co-workers. Healthy relationships don't happen automatically. They're built through presence, consistency, and honesty. It's not about being perfect. It's about being reliable. The friend who calls, the sibling who checks in, the partner who listens even when you're not at your best. These are the roles that bring real meaning to our lives. Romantic relationships in particular require deep investment. The idea that love should be effortless is misleading. Lasting love is built through shared values, mutual support, and daily choices. Passion may get things started, but compatibility, respect, and sacrifice keep things going. The right partner won't fix your life, but they will anchor it and give you someone to grow alongside. And for those who become parents, the stakes rise even further. Parenting isn't just about raising a child. It's about reorienting your life around something bigger than yourself. The love a parent feels for their child is unlike anything else. It's not transactional. It's not tied to success. It's simply there, constant, humbling, and all-consuming. It becomes one of the most powerful sources of meaning a person can experience. But again, it doesn't come without effort. Being a present, supportive parent is hard work, and it's worth every ounce of energy you put into it. It's also important to acknowledge that not all relationships are healthy. Some are toxic, one-sided, or built on control. Part of prioritizing relationships is also learning to walk away from the wrong ones. Protecting your peace sometimes means letting go of people who drain you, manipulate you, or constantly take without giving. It doesn't mean you're cruel. It means you value your emotional well-being. Healthy relationships are mutual. Both people should feel seen, supported, and safe. Another often overlooked truth is that loneliness can strike anyone, even the successful. In fact, high achievers are sometimes more vulnerable to isolation. Long hours, leadership roles, and public recognition can separate people from their peers. Over time, their social circles shrink, and intimacy becomes harder to maintain. That's why emotional check-ins, vulnerability, and maintaining old friendships become even more important as success increases. The most meaningful relationships aren't built on constant fun or grand gestures. They're built in the small, everyday acts of showing up. Texting just to say, "I'm thinking of you," listening without trying to fix, supporting someone even when you don't fully understand what they're going through. These moments are what build emotional wealth, and emotional wealth is what sustains us far more than financial wealth ever could. So when you think about success, ask yourself, who will be at your table when things go wrong? Who knows you, the real you? Who would miss you if you disappeared tomorrow? The answers to these questions say far more about the quality of your life than any professional title ever will. At the end of the day, happiness doesn't come from a corner office or a six-figure income. It comes from knowing that you're loved, that you matter to someone, that you're connected to something greater than yourself. If you want a rich life, build rich relationships. Because when the lights dim and the applause fades, the only thing that truly remains is who you chose to walk with. Chapter 5. The Algebra of Love. Love is often portrayed as something mystical, spontaneous, uncontrollable, driven by fate or chemistry. In movies and popular culture, it's all-consuming passion, romantic gestures, dramatic confessions. But real love, lasting, meaningful love, isn't built on grand moments or explosive attraction. It's built on sacrifice, respect, daily choices, and deep compatibility. The idea that love alone is enough to sustain a lifelong relationship is misleading. Love is important, but it's only one part of the equation. What sustains a healthy partnership over the long term is shared values, mutual support, emotional maturity, and a willingness to show up, even when it's hard. When you're young, it's easy to confuse chemistry for connection. Passion can feel intense, exciting, even addictive. But it's not always reliable. The same fire that brings people together quickly can burn them out just as fast. That's why it's important to look beyond attraction when choosing a partner. Ask deeper questions. Can I trust this person? Do they respect me? Do we want the same things out of life? Will they be there when things get hard? The truth is, a successful relationship functions more like a team than a love story. Both people need to be willing to do unglamorous work, compromise, apologize, listen, support. Real love is showing up when your partner is struggling, even when it's inconvenient. It's sacrificing time or comfort because someone else needs you. It's being present for the boring parts of life, not just the highlights. That's why one of the most important decisions you will ever make is who you choose to build your life with. This choice has massive implications far beyond romance. It affects your mental health, your career, your financial life, even your physical well-being. A supportive partner can lift you, sharpen you, and bring out the best in you. A destructive one can derail everything. It's not dramatic to say that this decision can determine the quality of your life. But good relationships don't just depend on picking the right person. They also depend on being the right person. Emotional maturity, empathy, patience, these are learned behaviors, developed over time. It's not about being perfect. It's about being self-aware enough to admit when you're wrong, to take feedback without becoming defensive, and to care about your partner's feelings as much as your own. Love also requires maintenance. Just like a career or a skill, it needs regular attention. Too many people treat their partner as a constant, something that will always be there while they focus on other things. But even the strongest relationships weaken when ignored. That's why small daily investments matter. Checking in, expressing appreciation, being physically and emotionally present. It's these little habits that build intimacy and trust over time. Another important part of love is facing reality together. Life is unpredictable. Illness, job loss, family conflict, personal failures. None of us get through life without struggle. In these moments, love isn't about passion, it's about partnership. It's knowing you can depend on someone when you're not at your best. It's standing beside each other, not because everything is perfect, but because you've made the choice to stand there. This is why the foundation of love must be more than feeling. It has to include respect, trust, and reliability. These are not glamorous qualities, but they are essential. Passion is easy when things are going well. What matters more is how someone treats you when they're stressed, disappointed, or hurt. Do they still listen? Do they lash out? Do they withdraw? These behaviors reveal more about a person's emotional capacity than their words ever could. It's also worth mentioning that in any long-term relationship, attraction changes. It evolves. The physical intensity of the early stages fades, and that's normal. What replaces it is something deeper: intimacy, familiarity, shared history. The couples who thrive aren't the ones who try to keep the initial spark alive forever, but the ones who learn to love each other in new ways. They build rituals, they laugh together, they learn how to reconnect after conflict. Love is also about being vulnerable. That means being honest about your fears, your needs, your insecurities, not as a form of manipulation, but as a path to real closeness. Vulnerability builds trust. And trust is the foundation on which everything else rests. Without it, there is no real intimacy, only performance, pretending, and distance. Sometimes love means choosing to stay when it would be easier to leave. Not in toxic or abusive situations, those must always be exited. But in ordinary difficulties, fights, frustrations, misunderstandings, love often requires forgiveness. It requires the humility to admit when you've caused pain, and the grace to accept an apology when someone else has. Relationships are not scoreboards. If you're constantly measuring who did what for whom, you've already lost the connection. And then there's the question of parenthood. For those who choose to become parents, love takes on an entirely new dimension. Becoming a parent reshapes your identity. It rewires your priorities. The love you feel for a child is overwhelming, primal, and unconditional in a way that romantic love never is. It can also be exhausting. Parenting is hard, mentally, physically, emotionally. But within that difficulty is profound meaning. Raising a child teaches you that love is not about you. It's about showing up every day, whether you're tired, stressed, or scared, because someone else depends on you. It brings structure to your life. It forces you to think long-term. And for many people, it becomes the deepest source of purpose they've ever known. That said, raising a child with the right partner makes all the difference. Shared values, aligned expectations, and teamwork are critical. Parenthood is not a cure for a bad relationship. It magnifies what's already there. Lastly, love, like happiness, is not a destination. It's an ongoing practice. It's choosing someone again and again through all the changes life brings. It's not always exciting. It's not always pretty. But when it's real, it creates a stability that allows both people to grow into the best version of themselves. So the question isn't just, who do I love? It's, who helps me become more loving? Who makes me kinder, more honest, more resilient? The right relationship doesn't complete you. It challenges you to become whole on your own, and then gives you the space to share that wholeness with someone else. Love is not magic, but it is powerful, and when it's built on commitment, effort, and deep care, it becomes one of the few things in life that actually lasts. Chapter 6. Sacrifice and trade-offs. One of the most uncomfortable yet essential truths about life is that you can't have everything. Every choice has a cost. Every decision, what to do with your time, where to put your energy, who to give your attention to, comes at the expense of something else. This is the concept of trade-offs, and understanding it is key to making smart, meaningful decisions that actually lead to long-term happiness. In theory, we want balance. We want careers that are fulfilling, relationships that are loving, health that's thriving, time for hobbies, time for rest, and maybe even a side hustle that feeds our passion. But in reality, you don't get all of that at once. Not without sacrifice. Not without choosing what to prioritize and what to let go of, at least for a while. The idea that you can have it all is one of the most dangerous lies in modern self-help culture. It creates unrealistic expectations and leads to constant dissatisfaction. If you're trying to excel in every area of life simultaneously, you're likely to feel like you're failing in all of them. Instead, what works is accepting that life happens in seasons, and that each season comes with its own priorities, sacrifices, and rewards. In your 20s and 30s, one of the most effective strategies for long-term happiness is to front-load your effort. These are the years when your time and energy are more flexible, when your responsibilities are fewer, and when your ability to endure hard work is usually at its peak. This is the season for sacrifice. Not forever, but for long enough to build a strong foundation. Working long hours in a job that challenges you, saving aggressively, learning valuable skills, building your network, these are not glamorous things. They require discipline. They may mean fewer nights out, delayed vacations, less comfort in the short term. But the people who make those sacrifices early are often the ones who earn freedom later. They buy themselves optionality. They create choices most people don't have in their 40s or 50s because they did the hard, unsexy work when no one was watching. This doesn't mean selling your soul or burning yourself out. It means understanding that you're not supposed to feel comfortable all the time. Growth often feels like stress. Discipline often feels like deprivation. But the discomfort you choose for yourself is far better than the regret life chooses for you when you don't act. The people who struggle most in midlife are often the ones who avoided sacrifice when they were younger. They chased fun, avoided discomfort, and spent money as soon as they earned it. Now they're stuck. The career they're in is stagnant. They have debt. They're supporting families with little savings and no time. And because they didn't make trade-offs earlier, they no longer have the option to make them later. Sacrifice is not punishment. It's investment. It's trading short-term ease for long-term freedom. It's saying, I'll do what's hard now so I can live with more peace later. That doesn't mean never enjoying yourself. It just means choosing when and how to indulge with intention, not impulse. Another area where sacrifice plays a crucial role is in relationships. Real, lasting relationships are built on mutual effort. You have to show up when it's inconvenient. You have to compromise when you'd rather get your way. You have to listen when you're tired, forgive when you're frustrated, and be patient when your partner is struggling. Love is not just about compatibility, it's about generosity. The same goes for parenting. Having children is one of the greatest responsibilities a person can take on. It reshapes every part of your life, your time, your identity, your priorities. And it requires massive sacrifice. Your sleep, your freedom, your spontaneity, all of it gets restructured. But in return, you receive a kind of meaning that nothing else can give. You become central to someone else's world. That kind of love comes at a cost, and that cost is worth it if you accept it fully. What's important to recognize is that sacrifice is not just about giving something up, it's about what you're choosing in return. When you say no to staying up late to get enough sleep for work, you're not just losing fun, you're gaining energy, focus, and progress. When you delay buying something you want to save money instead, you're not just restricting pleasure, you're creating future safety and options. When you choose your family over your ego in an argument, You're not just giving in, you're building trust. These trade-offs can feel painful in the moment, but they are the architecture of a stable, meaningful life. Most people want the results of sacrifice without the process. They want financial freedom without saving. They want deep love without compromise. They want a successful career without long hours. But life doesn't work that way. The equation is always the same. The more value you create, the more freedom you eventually earn. But there's a balance here. Not all sacrifice is healthy. Not all hard work is productive. It's possible to over-sacrifice, to give away too much of yourself for too long. Some people end up trapped in the habit of overworking, overgiving, and constantly putting themselves last. That's not noble. That's neglect. The goal is intentional sacrifice, not martyrdom. You have to know what you're working toward and check in with yourself regularly to make sure the trade-offs are still worth it. Sometimes, you have to reevaluate. A job that required long hours 5 years ago might no longer serve your goals. A friendship that used to be supportive may now be draining. A lifestyle you once worked hard for might not fit your values anymore. Life changes, and the sacrifices you make should evolve along with it. It's okay to pivot. In fact, strategic sacrifice often means knowing when to stop sacrificing something that's no longer aligned with where you want to go. In the end, no matter how smart or lucky you are, you will be faced with hard choices. You will have to give things up to get things you want, and every yes in life is a no to something else. The people who build rich, meaningful lives are not the ones who avoid sacrifice. They're the ones who understand what to sacrifice and when. Trade-offs are not signs of failure. They are the price of focus. And focus is what allows you to build something real, whether that's a career, a relationship, a family, or a legacy. So the question isn't, how can I have everything? The real question is, what matters most, and what am I willing to give up to get it? Chapter 7. Emotional Intelligence and Mental Health. We often talk about success in terms of achievement, degrees, promotions, income, status. But what matters just as much, if not more, when it comes to long-term happiness and well-being, is something much harder to quantify: emotional intelligence. This refers to the ability to manage your own emotions, understand the emotions of others, and respond to both in ways that are thoughtful, measured, and constructive. While emotional intelligence doesn't appear on a resume, it plays a massive role in almost every meaningful part of life. It impacts your relationships, your career, your mental health, and your overall sense of peace. Without it, even the most talented or successful person can find themselves feeling overwhelmed, isolated, or emotionally unstable. At its core, emotional intelligence starts with self-awareness. This means paying attention to how you feel and why. It's about noticing patterns, how you react to stress, how you behave when you're angry or afraid, what triggers anxiety or sadness. It's the skill of recognizing your emotional state in real time without immediately acting on it. Many people move through life reacting impulsively without realizing their own emotions are running the show. Self-awareness is the first step toward getting back in control. The second step is self-regulation. This is where the real work happens. Once you recognize what you're feeling, how do you manage it? Do you lash out when angry? Shut down when anxious? Seek distraction when uncomfortable? Emotional regulation is the ability to pause, think, and choose a more thoughtful response, even when you're under pressure. It doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means not letting them dictate your behavior in harmful ways. This skill becomes especially important during conflict, whether in relationships, family, or the workplace. High emotional intelligence allows you to navigate tension without escalating it, to listen even when you disagree, to communicate clearly without blame or defensiveness. These aren't soft skills, they're power skills, and the people who master them tend to earn trust, respect, and influence wherever they go. But emotional intelligence isn't just about managing emotions during interactions with others. It's also critical for maintaining your own mental health. No matter how smart, successful, or disciplined you are not immune to stress, anxiety, or depression. Mental health isn't something that only affects other people. It affects everyone, whether they admit it or not. Modern life is demanding, fast-paced, competitive, and filled with uncertainty. Social media adds another layer of pressure, constantly showing us curated, filtered versions of other people's lives, which makes it easy to feel like we're falling behind or not good enough. Add to that the stress of career, finances, relationships, health, and it's no surprise that so many people feel mentally and emotionally overwhelmed. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is to take your mental health seriously, not when things completely fall apart, but proactively, like you would with physical fitness. Just as you don't wait for a heart attack to start exercising, you shouldn't wait for a breakdown to start caring about your emotional well-being. This begins with normalizing emotional struggles. Feeling anxious, sad, or lost at times doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. The goal is not to avoid negative emotions. It's to develop the tools to cope with them. These tools might include journaling, meditation, exercise, therapy, creative outlets, or simply making space in your day to slow down and reflect. The point is to create systems that help you stay grounded, even when life gets messy. One of the most underused but effective tools is talking to someone. Whether it's a therapist, a coach, or a close friend, having a space to express your thoughts and feelings out loud can be incredibly powerful. It takes courage to be vulnerable. But vulnerability is not weakness. It's strength in action. It's choosing to be honest about your inner world rather than pretending everything's fine. For men especially, emotional vulnerability has historically been discouraged. Many grow up learning to suppress emotions, to man up, and to avoid anything that feels too soft or sensitive. But the consequence of that conditioning is emotional repression, and over time, that turns into isolation, anger, numbness, or self-destructive behavior. Learning how to express emotion in healthy, non-destructive ways is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. It's also important to understand the connection between mental health and physical habits. Sleep, diet, and exercise are not just about your body. They directly impact your mood, cognition, and emotional resilience. Chronic sleep deprivation, poor nutrition, and a sedentary lifestyle all increase the likelihood of depression, anxiety, and burnout. Taking care of your body isn't separate from emotional well-being. It's part of the same system. Another critical component of emotional intelligence is empathy, the ability to understand and care about what other people are feeling. Empathy helps build stronger connections, resolve conflict, and create more compassionate relationships. But empathy also protects your own mental health. When you truly understand someone else's point of view, you're less likely to take things personally, hold grudges, or spiral into resentment. You realize most people's behavior isn't about you, it's about them. Of course, being emotionally intelligent doesn't mean always being calm, agreeable, or emotionally together. It means being able to understand and work with your emotions rather than being controlled by them. It means recognizing that emotions are data, not commands. They tell you something is happening, but they don't always tell you what to do. You can feel angry and still respond with kindness. You can feel afraid and still take action. You can feel sad and still show up. The truth is, emotional intelligence and mental health are not extras you deal with after your career is sorted or your finances are in place. They are core parts of the human experience. And the earlier you begin developing these parts of yourself, the more resilient and fulfilled you'll be over time. If there's one takeaway from this chapter, it's this. Emotional discipline is just as important as physical discipline, and just like physical health, emotional fitness is built through consistent practice, honest reflection, and the courage to face what's going on beneath the surface. You will have bad days. You will feel overwhelmed. You will face heartbreak, loss, uncertainty. Everyone does. But your ability to navigate those moments, to process emotions without being paralyzed by them, to connect with others without losing yourself, to ask for help when you need it, is what defines real emotional strength. So don't ignore this part of yourself. Don't wait until the wheels come off to start paying attention to how you're really doing. Learn the language of your own inner world, get better at talking about it, build habits that keep you grounded, and remember, you're not supposed to do this alone. Chapter 8. Fitness, Health, and Aging. One of the most underestimated pillars of happiness is health, especially physical health. It's easy to overlook when you're young, full of energy, and focused on building your career or social life. But as the years go by, your body starts to send reminders that it won't take care of itself forever. And once you start to lose your health, you begin to understand just how deeply it affects every other part of your life, your relationships, your ability to work, your mood, and even your identity. In this chapter, the message is simple but profound. Your health is your foundation. You can have money, love, and purpose, but if your body is failing, it's hard to enjoy any of it. That's why investing in your physical health is one of the highest return decisions you can make. And like most important investments, the earlier you start, the better. The problem is that many people treat health like an afterthought. They assume they'll always feel the way they do now. They push through fatigue, ignore poor habits, and convince themselves that they'll get serious later. But the body doesn't work like that. Just like compound interest builds wealth, neglect compounds damage. Poor sleep, bad diet, no exercise. These things catch up to you, slowly at first, then all at once. The key is to stop thinking of health as something you fix when it breaks. Instead, it should be seen as something you protect daily. You don't need to be obsessed with six-packs or extreme fitness, but you do need consistency. Regular movement, good nutrition, enough sleep. These aren't luxury habits. They're the baseline requirements for a stable and happy life. And it's not just about physical appearance. Exercise improves mood, energy, brain function, and resilience. Moving your body every day, even just walking, can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, improve focus, and help regulate your emotions. It's not a cure-all, but it's often one of the first, most accessible steps toward better mental health. That's why exercise should be seen less as a fitness goal and more as a form of self-respect. Food matters too. We live in a world where unhealthy food is cheap, easy, and everywhere. The temptation to eat for convenience, not nourishment, is constant. But over time, those small choices add up. Poor nutrition affects not just your body, but your clarity, motivation, and emotional balance. You don't have to be perfect, but becoming aware of how what you eat affects how you feel is a powerful shift. And then there's sleep, arguably the most underrated factor in overall well-being. Many people treat sleep as optional, sacrificing it for work, entertainment, or social obligations. But chronic sleep deprivation chips away at every part of your functioning: your memory, your immune system, your emotional control, even your ability to make good decisions. Prioritizing 7 to 8 hours of sleep consistently isn't lazy, it's smart, it's strategic, and it makes everything else in life easier to manage. Beyond daily habits, this chapter also emphasizes the importance of thinking long-term about your body. What you do in your 20s and 30s sets the stage for how you'll feel in your 50s and beyond. Small investments now, like lifting weights, building flexibility, eating better, can dramatically improve your quality of life later. You're not just exercising for today, you're exercising so you can still lift your grandkids, walk without pain, and live independently decades from now. Aging is inevitable. No matter how disciplined you are, your body will change. Metabolism slows, joints stiffen, recovery takes longer, but the rate and severity of those changes are not fixed. People who age well aren't lucky. They're often people who built healthy habits early and stuck with them. They accepted that aging is real, and rather than fight it, they prepared for it. One of the most helpful shifts is to view fitness not as a short-term goal, but as part of your identity. You're not someone trying to get in shape. You're someone who values health. You move every day because it's part of who you are. You eat well not to hit a number on the scale, but because you care about your long-term energy, strength, and mental clarity. This identity-based approach is what turns temporary habits into a lifelong mindset. There's also an emotional component to aging that's easy to overlook: the fear of decline. As people age, they often struggle with losing strength, speed, or attractiveness. Society reinforces this fear by glorifying youth and beauty. But aging doesn't have to be a loss. It can be a shift toward wisdom, stability, perspective. If you stay physically active, mentally engaged, and emotionally open, aging can become a season of growth, not decay. It's also worth noting that health is deeply connected to independence. The ability to move freely, take care of yourself, travel, and stay active in your community is what allows people to live fully. Losing that independence, whether gradually or suddenly, is one of the biggest sources of sadness later in life. That's why caring for your health is also a way of protecting your freedom. None of this means you need to live like a monk. Balance matters. Enjoy food, take rest days, go out with friends. But always remember that your body is not replaceable. You only get one. And the better you take care of it, the more it will support everything else you want to do in life. Health is not just about adding years to your life. It's about adding life to your years. The ability to wake up with energy, to avoid chronic pain, to move without struggle, these are gifts. And they're often within your control more than you think. So, if you're serious about happiness, you have to be serious about health. Not because society demands it, not because of how you look, but because of how it feels to live in a body that's well cared for. Your body is your home. Make it strong, make it resilient, and do it now, because later will always be harder. Chapter 9. Legacy, Meaning, and Death. No matter how busy or distracted we become, there's one truth none of us can avoid. We are all going to die. It's uncomfortable to think about, let alone talk about, but facing this truth is essential to living a life of purpose and clarity. In fact, it's often the awareness of death that brings life into sharper focus. It strips away the noise and asks a very simple, very human question: what will I leave behind? This is the question of legacy, not in the sense of fame, fortune, or achievements carved into marble, but in the sense of what kind of person you were and how your presence impacted the people around you. Legacy is about what lingers after you're gone: your kindness, your values, your example, your love. It's the emotional residue you leave in the lives of your family, your friends, your community. Most people don't think about legacy until they're older or until they lose someone close to them, but the truth is, you build your legacy every day, whether you're aware of it or not. It's in how you treat others, how you show up when it matters, and how consistently your actions align with your values. Legacy isn't something you decide at the end, it's something you practice in the middle. This is where the idea of meaning comes in. While happiness is often associated with short-term pleasure, good meals, travel, laughter, meaning runs deeper. It's about a sense of purpose, a feeling that your life contributes to something beyond yourself. And unlike happiness, which tends to fluctuate, meaning tends to sustain you during the hard times. Meaning isn't always joyful. In fact, some of the most meaningful things in life are also the most difficult. Raising children, caring for an ill parent, fighting for something you believe in, rebuilding after loss. These experiences are rarely comfortable, but they create depth. They give your life structure and coherence, and they make your story worth telling. So where does meaning come from? Often, it begins with service. being useful to someone other than yourself, helping others, teaching, mentoring, protecting, supporting, building. Whether it's raising a child, leading a team, creating art, or simply being a reliable friend, meaning is rooted in responsibility. When someone counts on you and you show up, it affirms your value in the world. Too often people chase happiness through consumption, buying, collecting, upgrading. But consumption is fleeting. You get the rush, then it fades. What sticks, what fills you up in a deeper way, is contribution. It's the quiet pride of knowing you've made someone else's life better, even in a small way. That's the beginning of legacy. Another essential source of meaning is connection. Not just having people around you, but being known by them, being honest, letting others see you fully. Deep relationships are where many people find their purpose, not in abstract ideas, but in the daily act of loving, forgiving, supporting, and growing alongside others. As people age, their perspective on meaning begins to change. The desire to win or accumulate fades. What becomes more important is impact. Was I kind? Did I make the world a little better? Did I raise decent humans? Did I live according to my principles? These are the questions people ask on their deathbeds, not, was I popular, or did I make enough money? Thinking about death, then, isn't morbid, it's clarifying. It cuts through the superficial and reveals what really matters. When you realize your time is limited, you start to value it more. You stop wasting energy on petty drama or constant comparison. You start spending more time with the people you love, doing the things that matter, leaving behind the things that don't. There's also a certain peace that comes from accepting death. Not fearing it, not denying it, but understanding that it's part of life. This acceptance can reduce anxiety and increase focus. It can help you be more present, because you understand truly that each moment is not guaranteed. Each moment is an opportunity to connect, to create, to forgive, to laugh. Ironically, it's this awareness of death that often makes life feel more alive. When you know something is temporary, you pay attention. You cherish it. You stop waiting for the right time to say something, or to take a leap, or to express gratitude. You realize that the right time is now, because eventually there won't be another chance. But meaning and legacy are not just about death. They're also about how you live while you're here. Are you building a life that reflects your values? Are you choosing actions that you'd be proud of if you had to justify them tomorrow? Are you investing in people, in ideas, in work that will outlast you? It's tempting to believe that legacy is for the famous, the powerful, or the rich. But some of the most meaningful legacies come from ordinary people doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. A grandmother who raised generations, a teacher who believed in a student, a friend who always picked up the phone. These moments, multiplied across a lifetime, become a legacy. They don't get headlines, but they change lives. And if you're unsure what kind of legacy you want to build, start by asking, who do I want to become? Not what you want to own or accomplish, but the kind of person you want to be known as. Kind, brave, loyal, honest. These qualities are available to anyone in any circumstance. They cost nothing, but they're worth everything. Legacy is not about being remembered forever. It's about being remembered well by the people who mattered in the time you had with them. It's about leaving people better than you found them. And that's a goal worth building your life around. So much of what we chase, status, fame, accumulation, is motivated by a fear of being forgotten. But ironically, the people who are most remembered are the ones who didn't chase remembrance. They just lived with purpose, day by day, and let the legacy take care of itself. If happiness is a feeling and success is a goal, then meaning is the architecture that holds them together. It gives your days a shape. It helps you endure loss. It pulls you forward when motivation fades. And when your time does come, it gives you the comfort of knowing, I used my life well. Final notes. What really matters? After exploring money, success, love, health, and legacy, everything in the algebra of happiness ultimately converges into one simple truth. What matters most in life isn't complicated, but we often make it so. In this final section, the message is clear and personal. When you strip away ego, ambition, noise, and fear, the fundamentals of a meaningful life are always the same, and they're usually right in front of you. The first and most important truth is that being loved by those you care about is the most consistent and reliable source of happiness. Not admiration, not popularity, not being envied or followed, just being loved, feeling connected, being valued for who you are, not for what you produce or achieve. It's easy to overlook this when you're caught in the momentum of trying to be someone, but at the end of the day, what really sustains you is knowing that someone would miss you if you were gone. This kind of love isn't transactional. It's not tied to performance. It's built slowly through shared experience, vulnerability, and showing up. And once you have it, whether from a partner, a child, a parent, a friend, it becomes your emotional home. The place you return to when life is overwhelming, when you're lost, or when you just need to be seen. Another truth that emerges here is about health. Not in the aspirational fitness sense, but in a grounded, day-to-day way. Can you move without pain? Do you wake up with energy? Are you able to do what you want to do with your body? These things may seem unimportant when you're young, but over time, they become central to your freedom and your mood. Maintaining your health is an act of love toward your future self. Alongside love and health, the next key factor is having a purpose, being useful. People want to feel needed. They want to contribute. They want to know that what they do each day matters to someone else. Whether that's through work, parenting, volunteering, mentoring, or creative expression, the specific form doesn't matter. What matters is feeling like your time on this earth isn't just about taking up space. It's about giving something back. Purpose doesn't have to be grand or public. It doesn't mean saving the world or changing millions of lives. Often, it's much quieter. Helping a neighbor, supporting a struggling friend, teaching someone a skill, raising a kind human being. Small acts, done consistently and with care, can bring more meaning than the loudest forms of achievement. The chapter also emphasizes something that can't be bought or faked: peace of mind. So many people live with a low-level hum of anxiety, constantly worrying about the next goal, the next failure, or how they're being perceived. But peace, true peace, comes from knowing that you've built your life on solid values, that you've made mostly good decisions, that you've treated people well, that you haven't sacrificed what matters most for short-term gain. Peace of mind doesn't mean everything is perfect. It means you're not haunted by regret or driven by comparison. It's the quiet confidence of knowing that your life reflects your real priorities, not just the ones you post about, but the ones you live out every day. And then there's time. In the end, time is the most valuable currency you'll ever have, not just because it's limited, but because how you spend it reflects who you are. The people who feel most fulfilled aren't always the ones with the most money, but they are almost always the ones who are intentional with their time. They spend it on people they love. They spend it doing things that matter. They don't wait until someday to enjoy their lives. The hardest thing to accept is that time runs out for everyone. That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to focus you. Every day you delay telling someone how much they mean to you, every time you put off a trip or a conversation or a small act of kindness, you're gambling that tomorrow will come. But the truth is, you don't know how many tomorrows you get. This reality isn't depressing, it's motivating. It's a reminder to live deliberately, to make the call, take the walk, hug your parents, apologize, forgive, laugh with someone you love. Because those are the moments you'll miss, not the awards, not the LinkedIn milestones, not the likes, just the people and the time you had with them. One of the most grounding exercises in this chapter is to imagine your own funeral, not as a morbid thought experiment, but as a way to ask, what do I want people to say about me when I'm gone? Not about what I owned or what I did, but about who I was. Did I show up? Did I lift others? Was I generous? Was I kind? Did I make the people around me feel loved and seen? If the answer to those questions is yes, then the rest, money, titles, recognition, is just noise. There's also a final, humbling idea here. Life is unfair and short, but it's still beautiful. Bad things will happen. People you love will suffer. You will lose, fail, and feel broken. But even in those moments, life offers grace. You will heal. You will grow. You will find joy again, often in places you didn't expect. And it will not come from what you achieve, but from who you become along the way. So what really matters? Being loved and loving others without condition. Having your health and respecting your body as the foundation of your freedom. Feeling useful, connected to something greater than yourself. Creating peace by living in alignment with your values. Using your time wisely and not waiting for life to start later. The algebra of happiness isn't complex. It's made of a few key variables, balanced over time. When they're in harmony, life feels full, even in struggle. When they're neglected, no amount of success will feel like enough. At the very end, no one really cares how much you worked, how many followers you had, or what car you drove. They care about how you made them feel. They care about who you were. And so the closing message is this. Don't just build a life that looks good. Build a life that feels right. The kind of life where you wake up most mornings with purpose, go to bed most nights with peace, and spend the time in between with people you love. That's what really matters. As we come to the end of this journey through the algebra of happiness, I want to take a moment to leave you with something beyond the summary, something personal. This book wasn't about secrets. It wasn't about hacks or shortcuts. It was about truth, the kind that often gets drowned out in the noise of modern life. The truth that happiness isn't something you find in the distance. It's something you build, moment by moment, through your decisions, your values, and your relationships. The equation may be different for each of us, but the variables are largely the same. Love, health, purpose, peace of mind, and time well spent. Some of those variables you can control, others you can't. But if there's one thing this book reminds us, it's that we have more power than we think. To shift our focus, to prioritize the right things, to stop chasing what doesn't matter, and start choosing what does. So maybe it's not about optimizing every corner of your life. Maybe it's just about asking one honest question each day. Am I investing in the things that actually matter to me? If the answer is yes, even just more often than not, you're already on the right path. And if this video helped you pause, reflect, or think differently, even for a moment, then it was worth making. Thank you for watching, truly. Thank you for spending your time here. If this resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might need it. And if nothing else, call someone you care about. Tell them what they mean to you. That one gesture might matter more than anything else today. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And remember, the algebra is never perfect, but the effort is always worth it.